What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. And in this video, we're really talking about what we saw at the trade deadline. Nothing. Even though the Lions didn't make any moves, that's kind of a move on its own. Let's get this thing started. So I want to thank everyone for joining into my NFL trade deadline live reaction. There wasn't much to react to because there's really only one trade that happened throughout the entire thing. I mean, throughout the entire NFL, only one trade happened. So anybody that's still wondering, hey, what went down? Nothing. You missed nothing. But I still appreciate all of you guys stopping in. We actually peaked at 200 people. 200 people were in there live. It was insane. I appreciate all of you guys for that. But basically, the Detroit Lions decided to do nothing, and they were actually kind of looking to do something, though. Now, the Detroit Lions did have Darius Slay out there for offers, right? Darius Slay was sitting out there, and the Lions were, taking offers, and apparently it was reported that the Detroit Lions wanted a first-round pick and something else. So that something else was probably another player, maybe to fill out, or maybe just a later-round pick, 2 picks for Darius Slay. Turns out, no team wanted to do that. The Philadelphia Eagles were the top dog looking to do that. Didn't happen. So Darius Slay didn't get traded. But the Detroit Lions were also looking at another cornerback, and that is Chris Harris Jr. Now, Chris Harris Jr. is the cornerback for the Denver Broncos. They reportedly had a lot of calls and inquired about Chris Harris Jr., but the Detroit Lions were the only team to actually make an offer. And apparently, they offered a little bit less than a third-round pick. So something less than a third-round pick. We're not exactly sure what it was, but it was less than that, at least from what I could tell, from what I've learned. It was less than a third-round pick, but the Lions were the only team to make an offer, and as we know, it didn't go through, because if it did, we'd have Chris Harris right now. But I think, here's my thought process to that. I think the Detroit Lions were thinking about it like this. If Darius Slay is going to get traded, we should get Chris Harris back to finish the season, okay? Because you look at his age, his contract, stuff like that, it's not really worth a huge pick. But if you think about it, okay, maybe this guy can help finish the season for us, and then we'll worry about the future things later, and then we'll take our picks, which kind of makes sense. I mean, I'm not saying I want to see Darius Slay out of here, and I'm glad he stayed and he wasn't traded, but it kind of does make sense when you look at it from that standpoint. Like I said, Detroit Lions made no moves, and I think there's a couple of ways we have to look at this. The first thing is Lions made no moves on the front seven, obviously, and I think the Lions were thinking a little bit like this. These are, again, my opinions. I think one thought they had was, okay, Deshaun Hand is back, and he helped out our defensive line a lot, and Trey Flowers seemed to get going a little bit last game. We have been without Mike Daniels for a long time, so that's unfortunate, so maybe we'll bring another free agent tackle, something along those lines. But I think it was a lot to do with Deshaun Hand coming back that the Lions didn't go out there and give a huge offer for a defensive lineman or something along those lines. Now, I'm not sure if they did or not. I haven't heard any really reports on whether or not the Lions have given an offer. We may hear about that later from another team. But basically, I haven't heard about that yet. Either way, I can see from the Lions' point of view, seeing you got Deshaun Hand back, let's not go give a big offer to Von Miller. Even though I think it would have completely changed our defense, gave us that Khalil Mack effect, it could have really helped out. But I think the Lions, knowing that Deshaun Hand was back, makes a huge difference. If Deshaun Hand wasn't back and he still hasn't played yet this season, that could be cause for the concern. Like, okay, we're still without Mike Daniels. Hand hasn't played once this year. We need some help on the D-line. And when the Lions, you look at how much effort the Lions put into building this defensive line, and knowing that Austin Bryant will probably come back at some time later in the season. Hopefully Mike Daniels can get himself back very soon. But when you look at how much time and how much money they spent on this defensive line, it's kind of hard to bring yourself to say, okay, now let's give up even more resources, because that's where we're struggling. So, was it the right move? I'm not sure. We will definitely find out in the next few weeks whether or not they should have got one or not. Also, offensively, they didn't go get a running back. So, Kenyon Drake, he went to the Arizona Cardinals, which was kind of a steal in my eyes. I believe they got it with a 5th-round pick. I think that's what it was. That's pretty much a steal in my eyes. Obviously, we didn't get Melvin Gordon. No one was on the move, okay, guys? Just get that. No one was on the move. We didn't get a running back. So, I think the Lions saw a little bit from Trey Carson, and they're like, okay, yes, we can have maybe not a set number 1 running back, but we can have a running back by committee type of deal. Now, sometimes that works. Sometimes that does not work at all. And you never know. Lions could still go get a free agent running back. I don't know exactly if Jeremy Hill is still available, but if he is, that could make sense. Either way, the Detroit Lions are probably going to play running back by committee, and maybe like some of you guys said, hey, look, what's the point of going to get a great running back if we can't block that well? That may be the truth. We'll see what happens, but I think the Lions were kind of thinking along the lines of maybe we'll play by committee after seeing what Trey Carson could do. Trey Carson started that game off pretty well. Obviously, Ty Johnson fought for a lot of yards. So you have 2 solid running backs there, and you have a mix of guys. I think last week was kind of a tryout. Not necessarily, but kind of, because you really want to see where everybody was on the running back point of view going into the trade deadline knowing, okay, here's what we're with. And now coming out of the trade deadline for these next weeks that are going to be super important. I mean, these are the weeks that will decide whether or not the Lions will make the playoffs. These weeks are where you want to know, okay, who's our go-to running back. So I think the Lions learned a little bit last week against the Giants. So I think there was some moves that the Lions make without making moves. Obviously, keeping Darius Slay is a move on its own because you didn't let Darius Slay go for picks. You're still not selling, okay? We were talking about were the Lions going to be buyers or sellers. Well, they were really nothing. I mean, technically they were sellers because we gave away Quandre Diggs, but they didn't make any moves, and it was kind of interesting to see. But at the same time, what was more weird to me was that no NFL teams made moves. I mean, no one. I mean, Akeem Talib was really the only player that moves. It was crazy to see not one player really just move. There was nothing, and that was kind of weird to react to. We'll see what happens in the next few days if any news comes out, but right now, I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts. How do you feel about the Lions not making moves? Obviously, I think a lot of us wanted to see them go get a Von Miller and something along those lines. The good thing I guess we could take away is we didn't lose Slay. I mean, some people were happy about that. Another good thing we take away is we're not selling, really. I mean, technically, you trade away Quandre Diggs, so maybe, but they're not 100% selling, so that's a good thing. So we'll see what happens. We will learn what this team is about and whether or not they should have traded for someone when we look down in the future. When we look back weeks from now, we can look back and say, look, this was a flaw. The running back was a flaw. We should have got one. The defensive line needed help. We didn't do it. That's our fault. Okay, we'll know. Or we may know a couple weeks later. We may be like, okay, look, maybe they made the right move by holding on these picks. It wasn't necessary for them to go get someone else. So we'll see what happens. I just want to hear your comments below. What do you think of the trade deadline? Yes, it was boring. You don't have to tell me that. We all know. But how do you feel about the Lions making really no moves at all? Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'm out.